Daniel Wilson had loved his first love, his so-called white moonlight, for 10 years. In the end, though, he was forced to marry me. To make it up to her, he kept her close even after our wedding. She was always there, never out of the picture. At one point, we were even pregnant at the same time. Then one evening, Daniel came to me and said, "Lillian Fairchild, she does not like the child you are carrying. Could you please end the pregnancy?" He spoke as if it were nothing. As if he were sure that I, like always, would yield without question. But at the company's annual gala, I did something he never expected. I walked up to him in front of everyone, handed him divorce papers, and without a backward glance, got into the car of his greatest business rival. Daniel came rushing out after me like a madman. He grabbed my arm and shouted, "Lillian, is this why you want a divorce? Do you even know who he is? Do you know what you're doing?" I looked at him calmly and replied, "Of course I do. He is the father of my child." In the lavish private room of the gala, Emily Smith had said something just minutes earlier that set the tone for what followed. With a coy little smile, she nestled into Daniel's arms and turned her gaze to me. "Why don't we let Lillian drink this for me?" she said sweetly. It all started when someone offered her a drink. Daniel had quickly stepped in to refuse. "She is pregnant," he explained curtly. The person offering the drink grumbled, clearly irritated. "Then who is going to drink it?" At that moment, Emily's eyes slid across the crowd and landed on me, as I had just entered. "Maybe Lillian could have it," she said again, louder this time, drawing the room's attention. All eyes turned to me. Daniel's silver-rimmed glasses glinted under the light as he looked my way, his face unreadable. The room went quiet, as though waiting to see what I would do. I stepped forward without emotion. "And you, Daniel, do you want me to drink it too?" He seemed caught off guard by my reaction. For a moment, he stared at me strangely, silent. Then Emily leaned into him, wrapping her arms around his neck, whispering something in a soft, flirtatious voice. Daniel blinked slowly, then slid the drink toward me. "It is just a glass of wine, Lillian," he said flatly. "Thank you." The golden liquid shimmered under the warm lights. For a second, it reminded me of the very first time I saw Daniel. He had been on stage, bathed in light, playing Canon in D on the violin. That night, I fell for him, hard, and I had loved him, hopelessly, for 10 long years. A bitter taste rose in my throat. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "All right, but once I finish this drink, we are getting a divorce." I raised the glass. From the corner of my eye, I saw Daniel's brows slowly furrow, but he did not stop me. That dull ache in my chest turned sharp. I gave a cold smile, tilted the glass, and splashed the wine directly onto his suit. I placed the empty glass on the table, pulled out an ultrasound report from my bag, and tossed it at him. Daniel's face turned from pale to green in a heartbeat. I sneered, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you, I am pregnant too. But this child has nothing to do with you anymore." I turned and walked out. Outside, a familiar Bentley was already waiting by the curb. I opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. As I was settling in, I caught a glimpse of someone running toward the car in the rearview mirror. Just as I was about to turn my head, a strong arm reached across and pulled me gently but firmly to the other side. A deep, husky voice murmured beside my ear, "What's wrong?" Having second thoughts, Wesley Harrington looked at me with steady, clear eyes that seemed to see right through me. I turned away, uneasy under his gaze. "No, but after 3 years of marriage, I suppose I am allowed to feel something." Did Daniel ever love me? Maybe. He brought me thoughtful gifts, always remembered the little things. He brewed herbal tea for me every time I had cramps. When my stomach acted up, he dropped everything to come take care of me. I once believed that we would go on like that, quiet, warm, and steady, until Emily came back. It was only then that I realized some people's love comes in pieces. A man can act devoted to you with one hand, while holding someone else with the other. Wesley let out a breath of laughter, shaking his head. What kind of marriage was that? What kind of husband spends his wedding anniversary in bed with another woman? I felt the blood in my veins run cold. That anniversary. Daniel had taken a phone call and never returned home. I waited all night. Later, I found out Emily had threatened to take her own life if he did not meet her. He dropped everything and rushed to her side. And in the end, the two of them ended up in bed. My fingernails dug into my palms. The pain, for once, felt real. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, a pair of warm lips suddenly brushed against my earlobe, catching me off guard. The touch carried both a teasing desire and a strange gentleness. Then I heard Wesley's low, mischievous voice beside my ear. "Tell me, Lillian, do you regret not choosing me back then? When our parents arranged the engagement, they gave me two choices, Wesley or Daniel. Without hesitation, I chose Daniel. It was not a difficult decision. Daniel had always been the dream I quietly longed for, while Wesley had been my living nightmare. Back in high school, Wesley never stopped bothering me. He flirted recklessly, never taking no for an answer. Eventually, his family sent him abroad, but before he left, he cornered me at the school gate. I still remember the way the street lamp cast his shadow long and sharp behind him. Wesley's face was flawless, like something out of a magazine. But his personality was wild and unpredictable. He leaned against the gate and asked with that infuriating smirk, "One last chance, will you date me or not?" I barely glanced at him and tried to walk past. He blocked my way, holding out an arm. "Lillian, am I really that bad?" When I said nothing, he let out a bitter laugh. "What is so great about Daniel anyway? He acts proper, but who knows how dirty he really is behind that polished face." I had secretly loved Daniel for years by then. I could not bear to hear a single bad word about him. I lost my temper. I shoved Wesley hard and snapped, "Enough. Just because you are filthy does not mean everyone else is." Wesley stumbled back a few steps, lit a cigarette, and looked at me through the smoke. "So that is how deep it runs. Fine," he muttered. "Run off to your precious Daniel. Like I care." He pressed something into my hand, a small clothing button, and without another word, got into a black Mercedes parked nearby. That was the last time I saw him. Later, when the marriage was arranged, I chose Daniel, but I never imagined he was already in love with someone else. He had kept her close for 10 years, hidden like a secret shrine in his heart. Her name was Emily. Soon after we married, he hired her into his company, giving her a quiet office and a cozy title. At first, I did not think much of it, but slowly, the patterns became clear. Whenever she called, no matter the hour, Daniel would drop everything and rush out, claiming overtime. Then one day, I was rushed to the hospital with a perforated ulcer. The pain tore through me, body and soul. As I lay in the hospital bed, barely conscious, a message lit up on my phone. There was a photo attached. It showed Daniel and Emily, their heads leaning close together, standing against a snowy mountain backdrop. The place was unmistakable. Changbai Mountain. In Daniel's eyes, I saw a light I had never seen before, a pure, quiet joy. And then the message, "Dear Lillian, Daniel says he will bring you next time." But I got to experience it first. The agony of surgery that day was nothing compared to the weight in my chest. Daniel once told me that Changbai Mountain's snowy peaks were the most beautiful in the world. He had said he would take the woman he loved most there someday, but I never imagined I would be left behind, that someone else would see that view before me. Our car came to a stop outside Daniel's villa. I was just about to step out when Wesley grabbed my hand, grinning playfully. "Are you really going back in there? Why not come to my place instead?" "Stop it," I muttered, pulling my hand away. "We are not divorced yet." He did not insist. He just raised an eyebrow and said, "Fine, but if he hurts you again before the papers are signed, I will make sure he loses everything." Wesley had returned to take over the Harrington Empire 2 years ago. His ruthless methods had quickly become the talk of the business world. I did not doubt he meant every word, but men like Wesley, powerful, unpredictable, desired by many, how much true affection could he possibly hold for a married woman like me? To him, I was just a former prize he never won, something now within reach again, if only for a moment. The wind stirred outside the villa's gate. It was cold, the kind of sharp, silent chill that whispered of late autumn. When I walked through the door, Daniel was already seated on the far end of the couch. The moment he saw me, he stormed over and grabbed my wrist. "Lillian," he demanded, "what game are you playing this time? We had fought before, many times, over Emily." He thought I was trying to stir up drama again, but this time, I was simply tired. I pulled free from his grip and went to pour myself a glass of water. Behind me, his voice rose, "Emily is pregnant, and now suddenly you are too. What are the odds? And besides," he added coldly, "we have always taken precautions." My hand froze on the picture, and then, a memory flashed like lightning, illuminating what had always been in shadow. Yes, I murmured, turning around slowly. We always took precautions. I looked straight into his eyes, the truth rising in my throat like a scream. So, it was never about timing, it was never about the company. You never wanted children. My children, is that it? The words hung in the air like thunder. Time itself seemed to stop. Daniel turned his head away, refusing to look at me. It was a habit of his. A quiet, evasive gesture he always made when he wanted to hide the truth. But that single motion told me everything I needed to know. Inside my mind, it felt as though strings were snapping one by one. I stood frozen, my heart twisting in a sharp, aching pain. I had always thought that maybe he simply did not love me that deeply, but even if that was true, I still believed he would at least be happy to welcome a child. Now I understood, he did not just reject me, he rejected even the idea of having a child with me. I set my glass down, then pulled at the corner of my mouth with a wry smile. I said softly, Daniel, I am not foolish enough to lie about something like pregnancy just to play mind games with you. I really am pregnant. I looked at him steadily and continued, and I meant everything I said tonight. You chose to have an affair. You even had a child with another woman. And now you stand here and question me. Let us get a divorce. I said it clearly, calmly, and with finality. His eyes, which had been avoiding mine, slowly changed. That flicker of guilt turned into a simmering rage. Without another word, he spun around and slammed the door behind him. Divorce, over my dead body, he shouted. That night, I lay in bed for hours, unable to sleep. My thoughts kept circling back to the same question. If he loved Emily so much, why could he never let me go? Somewhere between dreams and waking, I felt a warm body press gently against my back. Daniel's voice murmured close to my ear. Lillian, it was my fault. Please, do not divorce me. Give me some time. I promise I will cut ties with Emily. Completely. Can you trust me on that? I said nothing. By the time I got out of bed the next morning, he was already gone. A rich smell drifted through the air from the kitchen downstairs. When I reached the dining room, Daniel was there, standing over the stove, slowly stirring a pot of porridge. As soon as I sat down, he placed a bowl in front of me. It has been a while since I made this. Tell me if it tastes different. It has been a while, I replied quietly. The last time he had made this porridge for me was back in our first year of marriage. After Emily showed up, that small comfort had disappeared, just like so many other things between us. When our child grows up, he said gently, I will make this for him too. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe something more. Daniel began talking about the future, painting pictures of family breakfasts, bedtime stories, quiet Sundays, but his voice, once so familiar, now felt distant. I sat there, not listening, only waiting. Just as I was about to speak, the sharp ring of his phone cut through the air. On the other end was Emily's voice, shrill and panicked. Daniel, if you do not come right now, I swear, I will jump. I will take the baby with me. It was one of her usual threats. I had heard them before, and every time, Daniel would drop everything and go running. I saw the conflict in his eyes. He glanced at me, torn. Before he could say anything, I gave him a small, bitter smile. Go. He looked surprised, as if he had expected me to protest, to beg, to care, but I had already made up my mind. All right, he said quickly. Relieved, he grabbed his coat and leaned in to kiss me. I turned my face away. Daniel paused, trying to meet my eyes. Lillian, please trust me. This is the last time, I swear. I just need to handle this one thing. That one thing lasted 2 days. On the third day, when he finally came home, he brought a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace. My grandmother's diamond heirloom. Years ago, my uncle had sold it to pay off his debts, and I had been searching for it ever since. Daniel handed it to me carefully, watching my face. My tone softened without me realizing. You remembered, he nodded. I had to fly to London while on a business trip. I tracked it down at the auction house. It just arrived a few days ago. The necklace shimmered in the morning light, its cool weight resting in my palm. Holding it brought back memories of the day my grandmother pressed it into my hand, telling me to treasure it. The past is gone, I reminded myself, as I sat there, lost in thought. Daniel hesitated, then spoke again, almost in a whisper. Lillian, Emily nearly lost the baby these past few days. Her depression is getting worse. She keeps talking about ending her life. He paused, his voice trembling as his eyes grew red at the corners. "She does not want this baby of yours. I was wondering if, maybe we could consider ending the pregnancy." His words hit me like stones, each one heavier than the last. Ending the pregnancy. Just think about it. Please. Every syllable crashed down on my heart, shattering it in places I did not know existed. He was asking me to give up our child. For the sake of his mistress. It was the first time I realized just how far a person could fall, just how deep selfishness could go. I looked at him coldly, swallowing the anger rising in my chest. "Fine," I said through clenched teeth, "I will get rid of the baby, but in return, let her die." Daniel blinked in disbelief, clearly not expecting such a response. "What did you just say?" I said. I repeated, biting down hard on my back teeth. "Let her die." Daniel stared at me, stunned. "Lillian, do you even hear yourself? That is a life." "And what about it?" I asked flatly. He grew agitated. "Emily's life is a life, but the baby inside you is not. Daniel, this child is yours," I shouted, my voice trembling with fury. "If you insist on letting Emily give birth to that child, I will charge you with bigamy." My voice rang out like a gavel in a courtroom. The words echoed in the room, and for the first time, I could not stop the tears from spilling down my cheeks. I stood there, my jaw tight, staring him down. We stood in silence until, at last, the sound of a door slamming broke the stillness. "Unbelievable," Daniel barked. "You are impossible." He left, and for the next several days, he never came back. I asked Assistant Wang to deliver the divorce papers to his desk, but he did not sign them. Meanwhile, Emily began sending me regular updates like clockwork. "Lillian, I was in a bad mood that day. Please don't blame Daniel," she wrote. Another message followed. "Daniel booked me into a luxury postpartum center. The place is lovely. Maybe you should stay in the same one with me." Then came a third. "He said he wants to throw me a proper proposal. Lillian, Daniel never loved you. Please, I am begging you. Let him go." In the past, whenever she messaged me, I would take screenshots and send them to Daniel. I wanted him to see her for who she really was. But every time, he would dodge the topic with vague replies, until one day, his patience wore thin. "Lillian," he wrote, "there is nothing between us. She has depression, her emotions are fragile. Can you not be more understanding?" That day, I stared down at the diagnosis papers I had just received from the clinic, my own depression, and I could not help but laugh bitterly. But now, none of that mattered. I opened the message thread, kept my face expressionless, and typed, "Please let Daniel know," I wrote, "that he should sign the divorce papers soon and stop clinging on like an old bandage." After that, Emily never replied again. Instead, Daniel called me several times. I declined every one of his calls. Finally, he sent a message. "What did you say to Emily? Lillian, can we not turn this into a circus?" Then another followed. "Your parents will never allow the divorce. The Fairchild family needs this marriage alliance." Yes, that was the key. The Fairchilds needed this union. And Daniel thought that would keep me tied to him forever. What he did not know was that I had already found someone new, someone his family would approve of, someone who would make divorce the only logical option. I packed my bags, blocked Daniel's number, and turned back to take one last look at the house. It was here, in this very room, that he once knelt down on one knee and asked, "Lillian, will you let me take care of you for the rest of your life?" I had cried so hard that day. I truly believed we would grow old together, but it turned out our rest of life was painfully short. I got into Wesley's car, but soon I noticed we were heading in a completely different direction. When we pulled up in front of an upscale gated community, I stared at the unfamiliar gate and let out a cold laugh. "Wesley, what is this? Do you plan to keep me hidden away in some kind of golden cage?" Wesley crushed out his cigarette and looked at me with amused, obsidian eyes. "Would you be willing?" "What?" I asked, wondering if I had heard him wrong. "If you were willing, I would not mind. But the Fairchilds are known for their pride. I doubt they would allow it." He stepped out of the car and led me into a luxurious private villa. The place was extravagant, but showed no signs of being lived in. Just as I was about to speak, Wesley's voice came from behind me. "Relax, I do not live here." He handed me a glass of water and sat down with a calm air. "Daniel knows all the properties listed under your name. If you really want to avoid him before the divorce is finalized, you need a place he cannot find. Once the divorce is done," he added, "we will get engaged." At the word engaged, I frowned instinctively and looked at him. Wesley, are you only marrying me for the Fairchild family shares under my name? I had asked my parents for a divorce many times before, but each time, they firmly refused. After all, our marriage was a business arrangement. Love came second. What mattered most was the alliance between two powerful families. Later, Wesley approached me. He said he was willing to be my next partner, but he had one condition. He wanted the 5% of Fairchild family shares under my name. I could never quite understand it. There were plenty of wealthy young women in Deep Cove. If it was only about expanding his business influence, he could have chosen anyone else. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, Wesley gave a quiet laugh and said, "What else could it be? Do you really think I have liked you since high school?" His words left me speechless. The next second, he took my right hand in his and gently ran his fingers across it. "Do not overthink it," Wesley added in a calm voice. "I never make losing deals. The Fairchild family has something I want." Then he looked me in the eyes, "And I am not the kind of man who wants to be tied down. A marriage where we stay out of each other's way suits me just fine." Of course, that was exactly what I expected. "I understand," I said after a deep breath. "Then what about the baby?" "I do not mind," he interrupted casually. "Whether you keep it or not is up to you." He then reached for the wedding ring on my finger. His tone suddenly sharp. "But can you take off this miserable thing? It is an eyesore." It was not until a week later that I heard from Daniel again. His assistant called me. "Miss Lillian," she said, "Mr. Daniel says if you want to play the runaway game, fine. Blocking him is also your choice. But tonight's annual gala is important. Please make sure you attend." I hung up and sat there for a moment in silence. So Daniel still thought I was throwing a tantrum. That was just as well. A big, formal event like this would be the perfect place to make a proper announcement. That evening, the Wilson family estate was filled with Deep Cove's elite. Everyone who mattered was there, including Wesley. As the CEO's wife, I was expected to speak on stage. From the audience, Emily stared at me with thinly veiled hatred, her eyes filled with fury. I met her gaze and smiled, then took the microphone with both hands. "I have an announcement," I said calmly. "Starting today, Mr. Daniel and I are officially divorced. From now on, this speech will be delivered each year by Miss Emily." My voice had barely faded when a sharp burst of microphone feedback rang out. Then the room exploded into noise. All eyes turned to Daniel and Emily. "Is this real? Has it become normal for the mistress to step out in public like this? Daniel must be out of his mind. He gave up the Fairchild heiress for the daughter of a housemaid. I heard Emily is pregnant. Is she using the baby to force her way in? In a powerful family like ours, reputation is everything. Having a mistress in secret was one thing, but bringing her out into the open, that was something else entirely." As the murmurs grew louder, Emily could no longer hold back. She covered her face and ran out in tears. Daniel looked as though a storm was brewing inside him. He glared at me with such intensity, it was as if he wanted to tear me apart on the spot. Our eyes met. I gave him a cold smile and tossed the divorce papers off the stage. The sheets fluttered in the air like snow. My mind flashed back to a summer day years ago. Back then, Daniel was tired of me pestering him, so he had tossed his perfect test paper down to me from the school balcony. It had been a clear summer day. I looked up at him, my heart pounding, and shouted, "Daniel, thanks. I will return it to you tomorrow morning. I am Lillian, from Class 1, 8th grade, got it?" He had said with a smile as the sunset lit up his face. That was the beginning of everything. Now, with tears welling in my eyes, I looked at him from the stage and silently mouthed, "Daniel, it is over." I gathered my dress and hurried away from the hall. Wesley was already waiting for me by the road. Just as I stepped toward the car, a strong hand grabbed my wrist from behind. I turned around and saw Daniel. His eyes were bloodshot, and his grip on my arm was tight and shaking. It was clear he still had not accepted what had just happened. He glanced at Wesley, then back at me, and his voice came out hoarse. "Lillian, is this why you are leaving me? Do you even know who he is?" "Of course I do," I said, looking straight into his eyes, but my pride got the better of me, and I told a lie. "He is the father of the baby." Daniel froze, his face tightened in disbelief, and his brows furrowed sharply. "No, that is not possible," he said. "If you are going to lie, at least make it believable." When I did not respond, his composure began to crack. he tightened his grip on my hand and said in a desperate voice, "You told me you loved me for 10 years, how can you let go so easily?" Yes, 10 years, even he remembered that I had loved him for a decade, from a timid, cautious girl to the woman who married the boy she once loved. I thought that was the perfect ending to our school romance, the kind of love story people dream about, but later, I came to realize it was only the beginning of a nightmare. I fought down the rising sting in my chest and pulled away from him. "It is true, Daniel," I said flatly. "I do not love you anymore. Is this not fair?" I added, my tone sharp. "You got another woman pregnant. I am carrying another man's child. I am simply treating you the way you treated me. Now I am giving you what you wanted. Freedom. So please, just do the same for me, sign the divorce papers." I stared at him without a flicker of emotion, his face drained of color, turning as pale as paper. He reached out to grab me, but I instinctively stepped back, and then, a wave of nausea surged from deep in my stomach. I bent down, dry heaving, as I heard his voice trembling above me. "Do you hate me this much now? Lillian, I never meant to divorce you. I really didn't." I clutched my stomach and looked up at him with a weak smile, "But I have been thinking about it for a long time." That night, my phone buzzed non-stop with calls from the Fairchild family elders. I did not answer a single one. Later, when the pain in my abdomen became unbearable, Wesley rushed me to the hospital. Through the fog of dizziness, I heard the doctor speaking to him. "She has a history of long-term use of antidepressants." The doctor said quietly, "It may affect the development of the fetus. I would not recommend continuing the pregnancy." "I understand," Wesley replied. "When she wakes up, let her decide." I do not want it," I said hoarsely, cutting in before he could finish. Wesley turned back toward me, his eyes filled with hesitation and concern. "But, I have thought it through," I murmured. "I am not going to have this child. Bringing a child into a world where he is unwanted is already cruel. But bringing one into the world with the burden of health concerns and no blessing to begin with, that is even worse." I gave Wesley a faint, bitter smile. "Besides, he would not want a father who cheats on his wife." The surgery itself was painless, but lying on that cold operating table, I felt pain erupt from places no scalpel could touch. It spilled out from every hidden corner of my heart, so sharp and unbearable that my body trembled from the inside out. Above me, the blinding white of the surgical light felt just like the blazing sun that day we graduated. I had leaned down under the sycamore tree where Daniel sat reading and playfully asked, "Daniel, my dad said you're planning to go to the UK." "Yes," he said, not looking up. "The finance programs are better there. Can I go with you?" "If you want." The second year after he left, I followed him, enrolling in another university in the UK. Every weekend, I made the trip to his campus. Maybe it was the loneliness of being abroad, maybe it was youth, but our relationship grew fast. Still, no one dared to say what we were both thinking, until that day, beside the Thames, when he kissed me. After the passion faded, Daniel pressed his forehead to mine and whispered, "Lillian, if only I had met you earlier, I think I would have liked you very much." The light over the surgical bed flicked off, those memories vanished like smoke, back in the hospital room. My phone buzzed with a message from a number I did not recognize. It was Daniel. "Lillian, I checked the due date. That child is not Wesley's. I am not blaming you for what happened, just stop being angry. Please, come back." I barely made it through the first few lines before the nausea hit me again. I did not even read the rest. I blocked the number immediately. Just then, Wesley came in with a bowl of soup. Seeing the look on my face, he asked, "What is wrong? Are you feeling sick again?" I shook my head. "No, just surprised someone could be that disgusting." He said nothing, only set the tray down and busied himself washing dishes and pouring the soup. Watching him move around so gently, my throat tightened with emotion. "Wesley," I said quietly, "do you have time this weekend?" He looked up, puzzled. "Why?" "I want you to come home with me, back to the Fairchild estate. I am not waiting for Daniel to sign anything anymore. I am suing for divorce." He raised his eyebrows, saying nothing. For a moment, I wondered if I had said too much too suddenly. But then, he gave me a small, sideways smile. "All right," he said softly. At the company's annual gala, my impulsive decision had clearly crossed a line with the Fairchild family. That evening, when I returned home, Nearly all of their elders were gathered in the living room. It felt less like a family dinner and more like a formal interrogation, but the atmosphere shifted the moment they saw Wesley standing behind me. Their stern expressions faltered, and one by one, they all fell silent. Dinner that night was layered with unspoken tension and careful glances. After a brief exchange with my father about recent developments in the business world, Wesley leaned forward and spoke in a calm, confident voice. "Uncle Fairchild, I actually came tonight to discuss something important. My engagement to Lillian." The room went quiet. For a few long seconds, no one said a word. Then one of my cousins, who had never hidden her dislike for me, spoke with a mocking tone. "Wesley, are you sure about this? My cousin is still a married woman. Even if you are after the Fairchild family's influence, this seems a bit unnecessary." Wesley interrupted her without hesitation. "It is not about the Fairchild family." He looked around the table and continued, "I have liked Lillian since we were in middle school. The only problem was, she never liked me back, even while I was studying abroad. I flew to England often, just to be near her. I remember she liked feeding seagulls along the Thames. She loved visiting the British Museum and Big Ben. She preferred beef over potatoes. I thought that by marrying the man she loved, she would finally find happiness. But I see now that she did not, this time. I have come back to take her home. Before we register our marriage, I will transfer several hotel properties under the Harrington name into her name, as her personal assets. This is my promise to her, and my sincerity." There was a soft clang as a spoon slipped from someone's fingers and struck the porcelain bowl. The sound was sharp and clear. I looked at Wesley in shock, unable to speak. My throat tightened, as if something invisible had lodged itself there. If what he had said was nothing but empty words, how could he have known all those little details about my life in England? Things I never shared with anyone. The rest of that dinner passed in a blur. My mind was adrift. Later that night, we both stayed over at the Fairchild estate. I could not sleep, so I stepped out into the cool night air for some fresh air. I found Wesley standing on the balcony, a cigarette between his fingers. When he saw me, he put it out immediately. "Why are you still awake?" I wrapped my robe tighter. "Could not sleep." "Wesley," I began. He turned toward me, his gaze steady and unreadable. "Yes," I hesitated, then said with a half-smile. "That little speech you gave earlier, you really think fast on your feet." I almost believed it. A gust of wind rustled his coat. For a moment, he just looked at me, then curved his lips into a lazy, half-amused smile. "You are so sure I made it up?" I said nothing. Then, without warning, he stepped forward and placed something into my palm. It was the button, the very one he had once given me back in school. I had returned it to him years ago through his assistant. "Lillian, you are smart," Wesley said quietly. "You knew that if you wanted to divorce Daniel cleanly, you would need leverage. So you sent this back to me." To the outside world, it looked like Wesley had been chasing me relentlessly, but in truth, it had been me who had taken the first step, testing the waters. His shadow moved closer, until I could feel the rhythm of his breath and the soft thud of his heartbeat. I clutched the button in my hand and said nothing. He leaned a little closer. "Giving me this means you were betting I would not be able to let you go. So do not underestimate yourself." He gave me a crooked smile, and as our eyes met, for the first time I saw something flickering in his cold, sharp gaze. Light, soft as stardust. My throat tightened, and then, without a word, his lips brushed mine, gently at first, then deeper, more certain. Between breaths, I heard him whisper, "Lillian, you made the right bet." A few days later, Daniel received the official summons for the divorce. At the same time, the Fairchild family began pulling out all their investments from several projects they had previously partnered on. That evening after work, I found Daniel waiting outside my company building. As soon as he saw me, he rushed forward and grabbed my arm. "Lillian, I will not agree to a divorce." I glanced at him and replied coolly, "I know, that is why I filed the case in court." Daniel was clearly unsettled. He had never seen me this calm, and perhaps that was what unsettled him the most. For 10 years, I had clung to him like a shadow. No matter how badly he treated me, I never left. He tried again, his voice lowering. "You might not know this, but your father pulled our funding from several of our projects. That is not just hurting me, it is hurting your family too. Maybe we could talk about." So that was it. The funding, that was the real reason he was here. I let out a sharp laugh. Then said firmly, "No, it was not my father who pulled the funds, it was me." Daniel looked stunned, his mouth parted in disbelief. I gave him a cold smile, surprised. "You should not be. My father has only one daughter. It was only a matter of time before the Fairchild family's affairs came under my control. If you are short on money, why not ask Emily to help you raise some? After all, true love and wealth, you cannot always have both, don't you agree?" As soon as the words left my mouth, Daniel's face twisted like he had swallowed something foul. I ignored him and turned to walk away, but I had only taken a few steps when his voice rang out behind me. "Lillian, do you really have to be so harsh?" he followed quickly with. "I admit, I have wronged you over the years, but it is not like I never cared, and now you are carrying my child." At the mention of the baby, something deep within me cracked open. My heart, long numb and still, suddenly roared to life with 1,000 crashing waves of grief and rage. I turned on my heel and stormed back to him. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and struck him hard across the face. The sound echoed through the hallway like a thunderclap. I stared at him coldly, my voice trembling with fury. "That slap was for the child who died because of you." The words struck him like a blow. His eyes widened in shock, and he grabbed my wrist tightly. "What do you mean by that? You hated me so much that you would kill our baby." Daniel's ability to perform was worthy of an Oscar. Once upon a time, I would have been moved. Now, it only made me sick. I pulled my hand free and said with bitter disgust, "Why are you pretending? Daniel, you killed that child. You pushed me into depression. You made me take medication for months. You even tried to make me drink in place of Emily. Remember that? Oh, and one more thing." I stepped in close, so near I could feel the warmth of his breath. I locked my eyes with his and said slowly, clearly, "You were the one who suggested I terminate the pregnancy. Have you already forgotten?" My words must have hit their mark. Daniel's face turned ashen. His body began to tremble, shoulders tense, fists clenched. He opened his mouth, but only managed a single word, "I." For a long moment, he stood frozen, searching for something to say. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat and dry. When did you find out you had depression?" I stared at him, confused. Of all things, why ask that now? Whether I had depression or not had never mattered to him. "Still," I answered, "the day you told me Emily had it, and begged me not to be too hard on her." With that, I turned and walked toward the door. Just before stepping out, I paused, then glanced back over my shoulder. "As your former wife, I would strongly suggest a paternity test for the child Emily is carrying." I gave him a slow, deliberate smile. After all, she never belonged to just one man. A few days later, Daniel's assistant arrived with the signed divorce papers. Since we had a prenuptial agreement, there were no disputes over money or property. Soon after, the announcement of my engagement to Wesley was published. Within hours, the news sent shockwaves through the business circles of Deep City. Word had it that Daniel had taken Emily to the hospital. After the visit, he flew into a rage and had been drowning himself in alcohol at nightclubs ever since. One evening, Wesley brought me along to meet some of his old friends. As we entered the VIP lounge on the second floor, I spotted a familiar figure slumped in a booth below. Daniel. He looked like a shell of the man he once was. In just a few days, he had let himself go completely. Stubble shadowed his jaw. His shirt was wrinkled, and his face was flushed from too much drink. A heavily made-up woman lounged against his chest, her laughter grating and hollow. Our eyes met for the briefest second. His pupils flinched, just a flicker, but I saw it. Wesley's hand tightened around my waist, then he whispered with a mischievous glint in his eye, "Want to make him squirm a little?" I frowned slightly. "And how do you plan to do that?" Before I could finish the question, his warm lips brushed against the side of my neck. All around us, the room burst into teasing cheers and laughter. His kisses were slow, deliberate, trailing along my skin like a question, tracing their way up to my earlobe. A soft tremble escaped my lips. Then, just as I was catching my breath, I caught a glimpse. Daniel, across the room, his eyes burning red with rage. Wesley's voice came low and raspy in my ear. "Focus, sweetheart, just on me." When I returned to the villa, the rain was pouring down in heavy sheets. My neck still tingled from where Wesley had kissed me earlier, leaving behind a faint mark and a strange warmth that refused to fade. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the rain fall in shimmering curtains. through the downpour. I spotted a familiar car parked just outside the gate, its high beams piercing the mist. It had been there for hours. My phone kept lighting up with calls from unknown numbers. I declined them all one by one, then finally switched the phone to airplane mode for peace. For the next few nights, that same car remained there, almost until dawn. One day, Wesley came by to discuss the engagement party. As soon as I walked him to the door and turned back inside, I found a figure standing silently in the hallway. Daniel. He was reeking of alcohol, his shirt slightly wrinkled, his eyes hazy. It was obvious he had just come from a nightclub. Daniel asked with a bitter smile, "Are you really going to marry him?" I looked at him calmly. "Yes, you should have received the invitation. It is fine if you do not attend, but please be sure to send a gift." He stepped forward, his voice rising. "Lillian, Wesley is not sincere with you. A man like him, he is surrounded by women. Do you even know how filthy he is behind closed doors?" Watching him lose control like this reminded me of the day Wesley left for abroad years ago. How ironic life could be. It truly was as they said, fortunes shift with time. I could not help but laugh quietly. "And you, are you clean?" "Daniel," he paused, as if struck by the question. His lips moved slightly, then stopped. His eyes turned red. "I am sorry," he murmured. When I said nothing, he stepped even closer. "Emily's mother raised me. Emily and I grew up together under the same roof. For a long time, I thought that kind of attachment was love." He swallowed hard and continued, his voice trembling. "When I was young, I promised I would marry her, so when my family arranged our engagement, I felt resistance deep down, like it was wrong to betray her. But lately, I have started to realize that maybe the way I feel about you, maybe that is what love really is. When I saw you with Wesley at that club, when I saw you so close to him, it felt like something inside me shattered. Lillian, I know I have no right to ask anything from you anymore. I tried to forget you. I really tried, but I cannot. I just cannot." His eyes brimmed with tears, his voice cracked with raw emotion. He looked at me like a broken man, desperate and alone. "Can you forgive me?" he asked softly. Our eyes met, but within me, there was only stillness. Not long ago, I had imagined that Daniel's regret might bring me some comfort. But now, seeing him stand here, crying and pleading, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, not even the energy to curse him. I gave him a gentle smile. "Daniel, we should move on." The wind outside stirred the autumn leaves. I turned and walked away. Just then, behind me, there was a heavy thud, a sound of knees hitting the ground. I spun around instinctively. Daniel was kneeling in the rain, shoulders shaking. At the same time, a car sped by on the street, and I heard the sharp click of a camera shutter. Later, when my assistant placed the latest gossip magazine in front of me, I glanced at the cover and instructed her to send it directly to Daniel. Our faces had been blurred in the photos, but the license plate of Daniel's car was clearly visible in the background. Sure enough, within a few hours, the internet exploded. My name, Daniel's, and Wesley's were trending on every major site. Several gossip accounts added fuel to the fire by posting a video of Wesley kissing me at a nightclub, confirming rumors that I had cheated. The online backlash came like a tidal wave. Daniel called my company's front desk in a panic. "Lillian, I am sorry. I am trying to get the headlines taken down. I will investigate and fix this." I could not help but laugh. "Do you really think there is anything left to investigate?" Daniel fell silent. Then, quietly, he said, "I understand." After hanging up, I told my assistant to compile a detailed public statement. It would include not only proof of Daniel's affair with Emily, but also photos of Emily entering a hotel with another man. If Emily wanted to destroy herself, I would not stand in the way. In fact, she was saving me the trouble. The next day, when public opinion reached its peak, my company released the official statement on its website. At the same time, I unblocked Daniel's number. I sent him a message: "If you are willing to admit what you have done over these years, I will forgive you." Whether or not he confessed would not change the outcome. But if he did, the impact would be far more satisfying. Sure enough, not long after the statement went live, netizens dug up Emily's social media account, and the comments came flooding in. "She is still so arrogant. What a joke. Cheaters never prosper. Hope karma hits hard. These netizens are too soft. Why is she not crying yet?" It was likely a desperate attempt to regain control. That very night, Emily went live online, tearfully claiming she was suffering from depression and threatening to end her life. Her cries were loud and dramatic as she accused me of spending money to bribe media accounts to slander her. According to her, there was no real evidence behind any of the accusations. She even swore that it was I who had seduced Wesley while still married. But what she did not know was that while she was begging for public sympathy, Daniel's company had already released an official statement. The statement not only acknowledged Daniel's affair with Emily, but also laid out the timeline of our divorce agreement and my engagement to Wesley. It clarified in no uncertain terms that I had only begun seeing Wesley after the divorce was finalized. Shortly after the statement was published, Daniel sent me a message, "Are you satisfied now, Lillian?" I glanced down at the screen, then set the phone aside without replying. Emily was clearly unaware that her livestream had crossed the line into criminal defamation. My legal team had already begun the process of filing charges, and for every day of the following week, no matter how she tried to twist the truth, my PR firm would release one new explosive revelation. For example, proof that she faked her depression, that while studying abroad on Daniel's family's dime, she had been kept by an older man, and even hints of possible drug use. Each one was enough to crush her reputation, her dignity, and maybe even her freedom. A few days later, our engagement party went on as planned. Daniel fulfilled a comment I had once made as a joke. He did not attend in person, but he sent an entire hotel as a wedding gift. That night, Wesley and I moved into our two newly prepared homes. After I finished washing up, Wesley walked in wearing a black robe. For some reason, my heart jumped into my throat. I watched him carefully, unsure of what to expect. He stepped closer, leaned over beside me, and casually stole a pillow from my bed. "You actually look kind of disappointed," Wesley said with a smirk, his eyes drifting over my collarbone and pausing meaningfully at the sheer detail of my nightdress around my waist. "We are not married yet, Lillian. Show some restraint." Realizing what he meant, I flushed with embarrassment and grabbed the pillow to throw it at him. But he slipped away like a fish, laughing as he closed the master bedroom door behind him. Just then, a new message popped up on my phone from Daniel's assistant. "Lillian, Daniel was admitted to the hospital for a bleeding ulcer. He has been calling your name. Would you be willing to come?" At the private hospital in Deep Cove, I walked into the stark white room and saw Daniel lying there, pale as a ghost. When the assistant told him I had come, he opened his eyes and looked at me, sorrow clouding his face. "Thank you, Lillian," he said softly. "Thank you for still coming to see me." I picked up the medical report hanging at the end of the bed. It was just acute gastritis. "Daniel," I said coldly, "I came only to tell you one thing. Even if you drink yourself to death, I will not feel the slightest bit of pity." Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the ring he had once used to propose. I placed it gently on the bed. Daniel had actually proposed to me twice. Aside from the quiet one in our future home, there was another, one he made in public. That night, the city skyline was ablaze with fireworks. Under that man-made starlight, he knelt on one knee. "Lillian," he had said, "this ring holds my heart, and now, I give it to you." I looked at him lying there and smiled. "Take back your ring. I am returning your heart to you." Daniel picked up the ring with trembling fingers, his lips colorless. He looked like he still could not let go. "Is there really no chance for us?" he asked quietly. Even now, he could ask something so naive, but my heart no longer stirred. What remained was only a clear-headed sense of closure. "Daniel," I said calmly, "you once told me that deep down you resisted being with me. Then why did you kiss me that night by the Thames? Why didn't you say no when I told you I wanted to move to England with you? The truth is, if you truly loved Emily, you could have said no to the engagement from the beginning." I took a deep breath. "So from the very start, you were perfectly clear about everything. You knew I was a good match, suitable for marriage and helpful to your career, but you could not let go of Emily and the affection you carried from childhood, so you kept me hanging while keeping her close. You know as well as I do. This was never about innocence, it was about greed. You just wanted it all." A breeze lifted the curtain by the hospital window, and the chill made Daniel shiver. I looked at him calmly. "Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop pretending to be the victim. I came here today only to tell you this. Whether you live or die from now on, do not ever contact me again. I have a husband." As I left the hospital, I let out a long, heavy breath. It felt like I had finally placed the last period at the end of a 10-year story. I had just reached for the car door when I saw a Bentley parked across the street. Leaning against it was a tall, familiar figure. For some reason, a guilty feeling crept into my chest, as if I had been caught doing something wrong. Still, I walked toward him. Before I even reached him, I heard Wesley's voice laced with sarcasm. "Meeting your ex-husband on your engagement night, Lillian." Quite the move, though his tone carried a hint of teasing. I could not tell if he was truly angry, maybe just a little hurt. I lowered my head and murmured, "I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you, but I thought you were already asleep." Wesley gave me a long, unreadable look. "Do you think living under the same roof with you would let me sleep so easily?" I blinked, realizing a moment too late. He had been driving when I left. Just as I was about to respond, he took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. His voice scolded me from above. "It's cold at night. Couldn't you put on more clothes before coming out? Do you think you're made of steel?" Speechless, I tightened the coat around me. In the next instant, I found myself pulled into a warm, firm embrace. "Tell me," Wesley said quietly, "what did you two talk about?" I thought for a moment, then gave him a brief rundown of everything Daniel had said to me. When I finished, Wesley frowned. "And that was it? You just let it go?" I looked at him, confused. What else should I have done? I don't want to waste another second on a man like that. He gave a cold snort. "Fine, you've let it go, but I haven't. I am not that easy to forgive." His jaw clenched. "He called me dirty. That guy. I hired a private investigator myself. If he can find a single rumor tying me to another woman, he can take whatever property of mine he wants." His words sank in slowly. I looked up at him in disbelief. His gaze met mine. Steady, burning, full of light. "And yes," he said softly, "you were right to suspect me before. I've liked you since high school." The cold wind howled past us, but I barely felt it. I stared at his face in shock, unsure if I had heard him correctly. Just as I opened my mouth to ask, a blinding light flashed in the distance. There was a sharp screech of tires. A car sped directly toward me. Suddenly, a figure dashed into the street and threw himself in front of me. "Miss Fairchild, please step back. You are interfering with treatment." The sharp sting of disinfectant filled the air, blending with the wail of ambulance sirens. It overwhelmed every one of my senses. Just before the car struck, I caught a glimpse of the driver's face. It was Emily. She was grinning, wicked and crazed, like a demon let loose. Wesley instinctively shielded me, pushing me aside with all his strength, and just then, another figure ran out from the sidewalk. It was Daniel. I recognized his face even through the chaos. The driver slammed the brakes, but it was too late. The car still struck both men. Outside the operating room, the red light above the door finally turned off. My heart thudded violently in my chest. I rushed forward and grabbed the doctor's sleeve. "Doctor, how are they?" The doctor gave me a reassuring nod. "Do not worry. Neither of them is in any danger, but one of them has suffered a spinal injury and will likely need a wheelchair for a long time." My breath caught, my lips trembled as I asked, "Which one?" The doctor hesitated for a moment, then said calmly, "Mr. Chen." Relief crashed over me. I let out a long, unsteady breath. I asked again, "How long is a long time?" This time, the doctor answered more directly, "A lifetime." Emily was taken into custody and charged with attempted murder. Her sentencing was just a matter of time. As for Wesley, his leg was fractured and wrapped tightly in thick plaster. After we returned home, he behaved like an oversized baby. He could not walk without help. I had to assist him getting dressed, even pulling on his pants. Eventually, he would not even eat unless I fed him. One afternoon, I finally lost my patience. I slammed the bowl down on the table. "Wesley, your leg is broken, not your hands." Wesley glanced at me with a pout, then sighed and lowered his head. "Well," he mumbled, "I did take a car for you, and my dear big sister does not even feel sorry for me." For nearly a month, my life had become one of silent endurance, almost like a servant in my own home. Then, one night, Wesley refused to leave my bed. I was just about to kick him off when he grabbed my ankle and pulled me toward him. His breath fell hot and low by my ear as he spoke. "Do you remember what tomorrow is?" Still confused, I answered, "Yes." "Why?" The warm, golden light from the bedside lamp cast shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp lines of his jaw. Wesley let out a soft chuckle and slid a hand around my waist. "To make sure you never feel wronged in the future," he murmured. "I figured tonight, I should let you try the goods, so you can decide if you still want to sign the papers tomorrow." His words were framed as a question, but clearly, he was not asking for permission. I was about to remind him that his leg was still injured, but before I could get the words out, the sound of something heavy thudding on the floor echoed through the room. It was his cast, discarded, and then, his black robe joined it. The next morning, sore from head to toe, I was half carried by Wesley to the marriage office. That evening, he took me to dinner at a revolving restaurant on the top floor of the tallest skyscraper in the city. I gazed out through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The night sparkled across the water, and tiny boats drifted along the river below like scattered stars. Just as dessert was being served, the restaurant lights dimmed completely. I instinctively reached for my phone to turn on the flashlight, but before I could, 1,000 drones rose above the river. Glimmering like shooting stars against the dark sky, they began to form shapes, our names, mine and Wesley's, traced out in lights above the water. All the massive billboards on the surrounding skyscrapers lit up with the same glowing message, "Marry me." I turned back to the man kneeling before me, and tears welled in my eyes. "Wesley, he gently interrupted me. "This is not just a proposal, it is a chance. I want you to give me the chance to pursue you all over again." For the first time, I saw a flicker of nervousness pass over Wesley's usually cool and collected face. "Even if you had never sent that button back to me," he added, "I would have found you, Lillian. I know you only agreed to our engagement because of the situation. So now, I want to chase you for real. This time, it will be just the two of us, no one else in between. Will you let me try?" The drones shimmered above the city, the river glowed with their light, casting reflections that danced on the surface. Elsewhere, standing at the riverbank, Daniel had his driver pull over, alone. He maneuvered his automated wheelchair down to the edge of the water. He had thought the dazzling display was part of a brand promotion, but when he saw the names Lillian and Wesley written in lights across the sky, he realized it was not an ad campaign. It was a proposal, one that must have cost a fortune. Back when Wesley lay in that hospital bed, Daniel had rushed there without hesitation, but even then, deep down, he had known it was already too late. He had lost her. She once told him he was greedy. Perhaps she was right. As a child who had grown up without his parents' love, he had mistaken another woman's dependence for affection, and each time that woman threatened to end her life if he walked away, he gave in. Again and again, he had not wanted to lose the only form of companionship he had ever known, but in doing so, he lost the woman who truly loved him, and now, this bold, extravagant proposal. It outshone even that night of fireworks years ago. At one point, Daniel had tried to dig into Wesley's past, hoping to uncover some scandal, anything that might prove he was nothing but a fraud, but after months of searching, all he discovered was that during those years abroad, Wesley flew to England frequently. For a man so deeply rooted in business, Daniel had expected to find a trail of flings, empty affairs, insincerity, but Wesley, despite his carefree appearance, had remained untouched by all of it. How could a man be so disciplined? How could any man resist temptation over and over again? Daniel never understood, but eventually, he realized. For her, maybe it really was possible. The river breeze was bitterly cold, biting against his face. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring, the same one he had once used to propose to her. She had returned it long ago. Overhead, the night sky shimmered with light, the drone display casting a silver glow over the city, and he knew, without a doubt, that the girl who once pretended to borrow a worksheet just to talk to him, who used to cheer for him courtside and bring him bottles of water, who even followed him to study abroad in England, she was never coming back. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.